I want to talk again this week about mixed numbers and improper fractions. As I worked with students last week, I realized that this is a skill that we continually need to practice and one that could be kind of difficult. So I want to review this idea of mixed numbers and improper fractions with you and give you a chance to practice with me today. A mixed number is a whole number and a part of a number. We use these all the time. For instance, you might be outside playing for an hour and a half. The hour is a whole and half is part of an hour. So you've got a mixed number there, a whole number, 1, and a mixed number, a half. Or you might order pizza with your family and get a couple of pizzas and eat 1 3/4 of a pizza. You don't eat the whole 2 pizzas, but you eat a whole one and part of one. Let me show you this way. A mixed number is a whole number and a part of a whole. So you can see here we've got 2 circles. We're using the whole circle, that's 1 or 3 out of 3 parts, and 1 part of the second circle. And we write it by saying 1 1/3, 1 whole and 1/3. We could use this when we measure as well. This pencil isn't exactly 2 inches. It is 2 whole inches and part of another whole. Each of the inches is divided into 4 parts, so we've got 1 whole or 4/4. We have a second whole, another 4/4, and then we have 3 out of 4 parts of the 3rd inch. So we say that this pencil is 2 3/4 inches. It's 2 whole and then part of a whole. Finally, we could look at a cake. Maybe we have 2 cakes or 2 pans of brownies, and we might eat 1 whole pan and then 2 out of the 4 pieces of the second pan. So we'd say we have 1 2/4 pans of brownies that we ate. So how about if you try it now? You write the mixed numbers. This is where you need your pencil and paper. Write down how many wholes and how many parts. Go. You can stop the video right now, or I'm going to pause for a moment, but then I am going to give the answer. So if you don't know, you can wait. Listen for the answer, but if you do know, try it out right now. See if you can write this as a mixed number. You should have written this, 1 1/4. Now try this one. You should have written 2 2/3. You're writing thirds because each of these is divided into 3 parts. So we've got 1 whole plus 1 whole, that's 2 2/3. Finally, try this one. All right. Each of these parts is divided, or wholes is divided into 7 equal parts. So we have 1 whole, here's our whole, 7/7, and we have 4 parts. So 1 4/7 is how we would write this as a mixed number. Now, instead of me drawing the mixed number, you draw the mixed number. So let's start with this. You draw a picture now of 1 1/3. All right, you should have drawn this. 1 whole and 1/3. Now you don't have to draw circles. You could have drawn rectangles and divided them into 3 equal parts. It doesn't matter, but you need to show 1 whole that's colored in and then 1 of the 3 parts of the second whole. 1 whole and part of a whole. All right, try this one now. 2 1/2. Draw a picture of 2 1/2. Three, 2, 1. I'm hoping yours looks something like this. You have actually 3 holes, but you've got 1 hole here, 1 hole here, and part of the 3rd hole. So notice when I've got 2 1/2, I'm really needing to draw 3 shapes. 2 complete shapes I am completely coloring in, and then I'm using part of the 3rd shape. All right, last one. Try 3 2/5. So you're going to have 4 shapes. Each of the shapes will be drawn into 5 parts, and you're showing 3 whole, all colored in, and 2/5 of the final shape. Keep going, you're doing great. Are you dividing each whole into 5 parts? Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you're not quite done, pause the video or keep going to see the answer. So here's what the answer would look like. We have 1 hole that's divided into 5 parts, another hole that's divided into 5 parts completely shaded, another hole that's divided into 5 parts completely shaded, and then another hole we only needed 2 of the 5 parts. All right. Now, improper fractions, they tell you how many pieces are all together. In this, and you'll see that the numerator, the top number, is larger than the denominator, and that's what makes it an improper fraction. The numerator is greater. So here's an example. 4/3, I have 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. I needed to draw a second shape to get the other 1/3 because each shape can only have 3 parts to it. So if I count these up, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, it equals 4/3. So let's have you try this now. We're going to go back to the sheet we just used, and I'd like you to write this instead of into a mixed number. Can you write this picture into a improper fraction? So you want to count up how many fourths are shaded all together. Go. 3, 2, 1. You should have said 5/4. We have 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. 5/4, and notice that the 5 is greater than the 4. All right, let's try this next one here. Write this into an improper fraction. How many thirds? Go. Three, 2, 1. There are 8 thirds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 thirds. Last one. How many sevenths are shaded? Go. 3, 2, 1. You should have said 11 sevenths. So we have 7 sevenths here, 8, 9, 10, 11 sevenths. All right, now I'd like you to try to write these not as a mixed number, but as an, try to draw this try to draw the improper fraction. So let's give you an improper fraction to work with. How about if we draw a picture now of 4 thirds? Draw a picture of 4 thirds. Three, 2, 1. Here's a picture of 4 thirds. We have one whole, that's 3 thirds, plus one more third, 4 thirds. All right, now try drawing a picture of 5 halves. Can you draw a picture of the improper fraction 5 halves? Three, 2, 1. This would be a picture of 5 halves. I have 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves. Last one to try and draw a picture of. Let's draw a picture now of 17 fifths. 17 fifths. You might want to pause the video at this point to make sure you have enough time to draw 17 fifths. One of the ways that you can do this is to draw 5 fifths and then draw another shape. That would be another 5 fifths. That's 10 fifths altogether. Draw a third shape. When we divide that into 5 fifths, that's 15 fifths. Then draw your fourth shape with the fifths left that you need. So to do that, it would look like this. You would have 4 shapes. The first shape is 5/5, 10/5, 15/5, 16, 17/5. That's what this looks like. All right, friends. So let's see what else. You can also now turn an improper fraction into a mixed number. So if I have an improper fraction like 4/3, look what I can do here. Here's my improper fraction of 4/3. I can write out 1/3 4 times. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. These 3, if I circle them, 3/3 is the same as 1, and there's 1/3 left over, so my mixed number is 1 1/3. So I'm circling what's a whole. Remember, a whole is when your numerator and denominator are the same, and then anything left over is my fraction. Here's another example with 7/4. I wrote out 1/4 7 times, and then I circled 4/4 because that's one whole, and I noticed there were 3/4 left over, so my answer is 1 3/4. Now I could have drawn a picture also. You can see here I drew a picture of 4/4 and 3/4, and then I can see, oh, it's one whole and 3/4. But I could also just write out these as well. So now it's your turn. Let's see if you can do this here. You want to change the improper fraction into a mixed number. So we've got an improper fraction of 8/6. Change that into a mixed number. I'm going to write 1/6 8 times, and then I'm going to circle a whole. 6/6. How many are left over? You might have done something just like this. I wrote out 6/6 8 times. I circled 6 of those 1/6. That's one whole, and I have 2 6 left over. Sorry, this should be a 6 here, not an 8. Here we go. Sorry about that. That should be a 2 6. We want to keep our denominators always the same. All right, let's try another one. How about if you try putting 5/4 turn it into a mixed number. How many wholes and how many fourths are left over? So write 1/4 5 times. Circle 4 of those 1/4 because that's going to equal one whole. And how many are left over? You might have done something like this. You've got 5/4 written down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I circled 4 of them because that's going to equal one whole. And then what do I have left? Just 1/4. So my answer is 1 and 1/4. All right, let's try one more. This time we have 7/3. So I would write out 1/3 7 times. And then this time I'm going to be circling groups of 3 because 3/3 is one whole. How many wholes? And then what fraction is left? All right, and so maybe you did something like I did here. I wrote out 1/3 7 times. I circled groups of 3 because that's a whole, 3/3. 3/3, there's 2 wholes, and 1/3 is remaining as a remainder, and so I have 2 and 1/3. Now there is another way to do this. This is a great way, so don't stop using this strategy if that's what you understand. But there is another way to do this as well. So rather than draw a picture or write out all the fraction pieces, 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, you can divide to find the improper fraction. So if you look at a fraction here, this line actually means divided by. 8 divided by 6, 5 divided by 4, 7 divided by 3. This isn't a trick, this is really what fractions mean. So here I have 8 divided by 6. I know that 6 goes into 8 one time. 6 times 1 is 6. When I subtract, I have 2 left over. So I have 1 whole and then 2 parts left over. And notice that this remainder 2, I can put a 6 underneath it, but I want to keep this as my denominator. Remember, it was my denominator up here, so I'm not changing it. So I can say it's 1 and 2/6. Take a look at this next one. Here was 5/4. So I can divide 5 by 4. And here's where I did that right here. 5 divided by 4, well, 1, I can take one group of 4 out. 1 times 4 is 4. I have 1 left over. And notice my denominator is what my divisor is. So my answer is 1 1/4. 7/3, I can divide 7 by 3. I know 2 times 3 is 6. When I subtract, I have 1 left over. My denominator is my divisor, so my answer is 2 1/3. If this is confusing for you, don't use that strategy. Instead, use this strategy. You can write out all of the fractions and circle the wholes, or you can divide. So now it's your turn to try. Okay. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong sheet here. So now let's try a few more of these and use whatever strategy you would like. You can divide 11 divided by 5 to show how many wholes and how many parts. Or you could write out 1/5 11 times. Pause the video and then hit the play button when you're ready to show your answer. All right, so the answer here, 11 divided by 5. I know that 2 times 5 is 10, so I have 2 wholes and 1 left over, so my answer would be 2 1/5. Remember, my denominator is the same as my divisor. Denominator never changes. Don't change the denominator. So I have 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 1/5, 2 1/5. All right, let's try this one now. 9/3. You want to find out what is the mixed number. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video and then play it when you're ready to show your answer. All right, so here's my answer. I said 9 divided by 3. Well, I know 3 times 3 is 9, and you know what? There is no remainder. So my answer is just 3. 9/3 is the same as 3. It's just a whole number, 3. All right, last one, 10/4. 10/4. Pause the video, figure out what the mixed number is. You can either write out 1/4 10 times and circle all the groups of 4/4, or you can divide. Turn the video back on when you're ready to move on. All right, so here's what I did. I said 10 divided by 4. Well, I know that 2 times 4 is 8, so I can take out 2 groups of 4, and when I subtract, I have 2 left over. So 2 groups of 4 and 2/4. 10/4 is the same thing as 2 2/4. The exact same thing. This improper fraction is the same as this mixed number. All right, last thing we're going to try. Can you turn a mixed number into an improper fraction? So here's a mixed number, 1 3/4, and look what I did here. I know this 1 is the same thing as 4/4. I know I need to always have my denominator stay the same, so I'm saying that a whole is 4/4 because look, this denominator is fourths. So 4/4 is 1 whole plus 3/4 is 7/4. 4 plus 3 is 7. Notice my denominator stays the same. I can do the same here for 2 1/4. This time I don't just have one group of 4/4, I have 2 groups of 4/4. 2 is 1 plus 1. So I have 4/4 plus 4/4, and then I have 1/4 left over. Notice I'm keeping my denominators always the same, and I'm just adding up the parts of my numerators. 4 plus 4 plus 1 is 9. So 2 1/4 is the same thing as 9/4. All right, now you try. Here's the whole sheet. You can either copy all of these, try it, and then turn it back on to see the answers, or just take it one at a time. The first one is 1 2/6. Can you turn this into an improper fraction? This is what I did. I said 1 is the same as 6/6. Notice I'm keeping my denominators the same. Plus I have the 2/6, and that's going to equal 8/6. So this is my whole, plus the 2/6, 8/6. All right, how about this one? 1 1/5. So remember, my 1 is the same as 5/5, and then I've got 1 more 5th. All right, 3, 2, 1. So 5/5 is the same as 1 whole, keeping my denominators the same. Then I have the 1/5 that I'm going to add to that whole, and I have 6/5 altogether. So 1 1/5 right here is the same as 6/5. All right, try this next one. 2 3/6. oops, sorry. So I'm going to have 2 groups of 6, 6 plus 3 more 6. So here's what I did. 3, 2, 1. I said, well, one group of the 2, I've got to have 2 holes. So I've got 6, 6 is 1 hole, 6, 6 is another hole, plus 3 more 6, altogether 15, 6. So 2 holes, 3, 6 is 15, 6. That is the exact same thing as saying 2 and 3, 6. 2 more to try. 4 and 7/8. So now I have 8/8 is 1 whole, and I have that 4 times and 7 more 8s. Sometimes students recognize that another strategy is to say 4 times 8. I've got 8/8 4 times plus 7. So you can say 4 times 8 plus 7. If you understand what I'm saying, try that strategy. Otherwise, write out 8/8 4 times and add it to 7. And this is what I did. I wrote out 8/8 plus 8/8 plus 8/8 plus 8/8 plus 7/8, and it's 39/8. So 4 wholes and 7/8 is the same as 39/8. All right, friends, last thing to do in today's lesson. 1 and 9/10. Change that into an improper fraction. I have 1 whole. Remember, my denominators have to stay the same, so that would be 10/10 plus 9/10. How many tenths would that be altogether? So if you look to see what I did, I have 10/10, that's 1 whole, plus the 9/10 is 19/10. All right, friends, it's a lot of information about mixed numbers and improper fractions, but really important concepts to review. Now you can go back to Schoology, look for some worksheets to practice these concepts. You can always pull up this video to review anything that we've talked about, and you can go back to last week's videos because last week's videos also described how to do exactly what I did today. I'm hoping that's helpful. Please remember, you can always email me, message me in Schoology, show up on Fridays with any questions you have about these concepts.